All right. What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. We are doing our week one post game live. Man, it was an ugly one, guys. Matt, why don't you go ahead and take it away? Let us know what your initial thoughts were. The 49ers week one loss.
Slop City. The team beat itself. People are talking about on Twitter about how good Kyler Murray is and stuff. Listen, if you let DeAndre Hopkins get 14 catches, your game plan is bad. No matter how you slice it, he should not. I mean, how do you forget that? The two people you have to look out for are Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. And DeAndre Hopkins goes off. Kyler Murray, they kind of held him. They 5.75 yards per attempt or whatever, and that's fine. But he also had 11 carries for like 130 yards or whatever. And it's like, you can't let him get loose. And there was some referee stuff, but at the end of the day, the 49ers shot themselves in the foot big time. And I think a lot of that has to do with, injuries. And it's just like, man, interior O-line was terrible. The wide receiver play. When Raheem Mostert is your leading receiver, that's terrible. George Kittle was nothing after halftime. When he got injured, he was nothing but a decoy. And so, it was a terrible game. But that being said, people are overreacting, and I know it's an emotional thing or whatever. Like we had a lot of opportunities. We had this and this and that. We didn't get it done. But at the end of the day, it's, this is still a good team. And, I'm looking at the upcoming schedule and I'm seeing next week is the Jets. The week after that, it's the Giants. Then we have, a game against the Eagles, who just blew a game today to the Washington football team after being up 17-0. Then we have the Dolphins, who are just trash. And then, we have a Rams team who, we typically tend to play. So we could end up coming out of this 5-1. So one game is not the end of the world, but we had a winnable game and they let it slip, and it was just poor play all the way around. And I think a lot of that has to do with, no preseason games. The fact that this team doesn't tackle in training camp, I think, is a huge issue. There were some mental lapses, and it's just, an odd off season leading into it is going to lead to some weird things happening. So, don't want to read too much into it, even though it kind of sucks.
It sucks because, just like you said there, they were so close. They had so many chances going down to the final offensive play. It was 4th and 5, I believe, on like the 16. And I don't know. I mean, it's always easier to call the play calls questionable on the other side of the field, or the other side of, when it doesn't work out. But it's like, that's the pass that you draw up.
Jimmy was fucking late on that throw, though, by the way.
He was very late. No,
he was late.
He was late on a couple of throws today.
Oh, right. Yeah, he was, and like, so that Bourne throw in the end zone, it's just like, fuck, dude, like 6 inches higher.
Yep.
And it's a touchdown,
Yep.
And it's those little things that, like, we hear about, oh, Trent Taylor was this like star in training camp and stuff. And it's just like,
where'd he go?
Well, he wasn't a star on the field. He had 2 catches for 7 yards. Like, I don't want to hear. And then Kyle Shanahan, I guess, came out and said that the game plan was to avoid the wide receivers because they were thin. And it's just like, what kind of fucking game plan is that? Like, that sets off my bullshit meter, because I'm just like,
yeah.
Listen, if you're saying that you're going to purposefully take away the weapons that you do have and limit yourself, like, why would you do that?
Yep.
It's like, it's not like, listen, Patrick Peterson hasn't been Pat Pete for like 2 years. Like, it's not like he's the super shutdown guy. You had to worry about Budda Baker, who again went low on George Kittle. I mean, Budda Baker has the Cardinals have an obsession with George Kittle's knee.
Yep.
It seems like, but it's just like, listen, Jimmy missed some throws for sure. I'm not going to like completely absolve Jimmy. Like, there's no excuse for that. But at the same time, I didn't see those wide receivers doing a great job of fucking getting open either. So, like, all the way around, it was just sloppy, from the play calling to the execution to the weapons that were on the field. You could tell they were missing a lot of guys on the interior offensive line and the wide receiving core, and that they needed more time and preseason games to kind of get this stuff together,
When your running backs are lining up in wide receiver positions and making better plays than your actual wide receivers are, there is a big problem when it comes to that. And that does tell me that Shanahan can work his running backs very well, and he does know how to use them in the system. But when you're coming in saying that, oh, we're thin at wide receiver, I didn't want to use them. But here you are, you have the guys that have proven to come through, and you still don't use them. That's kind of what leads to concern for me.
Yeah.
What I think pissed me off the most is, how thin you are at wide receiver. I have a hard time believing they didn't at least anticipate Ayuk not playing today. Even if he did, it would have been on a snap count. They didn't call anybody up. They didn't sign anybody. it's like, then do something about it. You just go out there as is, and it's like, I mean, we're thin at receivers, so I guess we just won't use them.
Exactly.
It's like, that's not gonna work.
That was the puzzling thing when John Lynch came out earlier in the week, like last week or whatever, and was like, "Oh, Mohamed Sanu, nah, we're good." And I'm like, "Why do you think you're good? Like,
Yeah.
You're bringing in all this other trash. You're bringing in JJ Nelson. You're bringing in freaking Kevin White, all these super trash receivers. You're not going to bring in a guy who has been proven to produce in the NFL, who might not necessarily get along in the Belichick system, but maybe still offers you something in Mohamed Sanu, and you're not even going to take a look. That to me it's just so head scratching, and I don't get it. So it's just you're thin at wide receiver, and to me, they came in without a solid game plan. Like when you put Dante Pettis, you put Trent Taylor back there to return a punt, then you put Dante Pettis back there, and then you go right back to Taylor. You're telling me you don't have a plan, that's just it's inexcusable. They came in sloppy. We're gonna hear all the stuff on Twitter about the Super Bowl hangover and all that, and I don't think it's that. I just think that Shanahan's system is like super complex, and without proper lead up time, you're not gonna be firing on all cylinders. But at the same time, I mean, you're professional, so at the end of the day, you got to do the shit you got to do. Again, Hopkins 14 catches, no excuse for that.
Yeah.
Murray getting over 100 yards rushing, no excuse for that. They did a great job in the first half of like spying him and making him slide and whatever. And yeah, the refs blew some calls. I'm not gonna say that they didn't, because they did. Like that call on Hyder was terrible. The hold again, or the PI that should have been at worst a hold against Mosley.
Yep.
I mean, you're talking about bailing these guys out. The call when Kyler Murray was in the end zone, and it was like, oh, maybe that's grounding, and then they turned it into a defensive hold, and it's like, wait, you're talking about K'Wan Williams getting his jersey pulled up over his head by Hopkins, and that's on K'Wan? Like,
on top of not a single holding call on one of the worst offensive lines in football from the Arizona Cardinals.
Exactly.
Bosa, Ford, all those guys got held a monumentous amount of times, and it was really frustrating. Those guys are still getting pressure, don't get me wrong. But again, to not have a single holding call against these guys, absolutely atrocious. 100%.
Yeah.
What pissed me off the most, real quick, is these calls, and then the 49ers, I don't want to say 49ers fans, other teams, fans, social media, on Twitter will go out and say, oh, you guys are just going to cry the refs, Well, when these calls are that bad, what else can you do but kind of sit there and laugh, scratch your head? And it's sad. And what's messed up, real quick, Matt, is that it's not just the refs, but when you add it on to everything else that they have constantly been screwing themselves over throughout the day, it's just too much to overcome.
Right. And both things can be true at the same time. The 49ers can play down to their opponent and let a game slip out of their hands, while the refs also don't do them any favors. Both things can be true. The 49ers can screw the pooch and still have the refs kind of screw them as well. I know that Steve's in the chat, and he's like, the 49ers receivers are what they are. KB is no better than a third down guy, like a chain mover, a 3, and Pettis is just a guy. I agree. And that's why Debo and Ayuk being out, who would be our top 2 receivers, being out hurts us so much. And then, the injury to Kittle, who's like, yeah, I'm good. But when he comes back, and it's just like, he's not getting separation, not a single catch after halftime. And he was essentially a decoy. And so then the Cardinals defense is like, well, now we don't really have to worry about him. Now we can put Isaiah Simmons on him and just leave him there and then focus our attention elsewhere, because Kittle's not going to do anything. He's not moving around the way that Kittle should. It'll be interesting to see what's wrong with Kittle. It's not going to be an ACL or anything crazy like that. There was no lateral force on it, in my medical opinion. The worry would be maybe a bone contusion or maybe a small meniscus tear or something like that. But he definitely didn't look right. And as much as Kittle tries to be a gamer, I mean, he was essentially out there to block on running plays and then be a decoy. So, it's just all the way around the 49ers offense. So the defense initially, I thought, was playing really well. And then when the 49ers offense couldn't sustain drives and the Arizona Cardinals started upping the tempo, then you start seeing the defense getting a little bit tired. And there were lapses. I will grant you that. There was that 3rd down and 17 where Quan Alexander inexplicably had no idea where the line of scrimmage was and turned around to follow the receiver, even though Kyler Murray was clearly past the line of scrimmage already and could have saved that 3rd down. Exactly. And so there were mistakes for sure. But it's not the end of the world. It's a bad game. It's frustrating for sure. The block punt was frustrating. I mean, just that whole stunt, which was a good design, by the way, but Dante Johnson got blown up on punt protection. And, I mean, there were so many opportunities for the 49ers to take control. Zane Gonzalez missed 2 field goals. I mean, the Cardinals were giving us field position and they couldn't do anything with it. And I think that's, injuries played a big part and rust played a huge part, I think, and the team needs to really tighten it up.
So that's a good point when you talk about rust like that. It almost felt like it wasn't just Jimmy Garoppolo who was rusty, but it was Kyle Shanahan also. The 4th down play calling was atrocious. The play calling in the second half was atrocious. And I get his quote unquote thin at wide receiver excuse. That I'm sorry, but that doesn't play well with me, man. You have these guys, you build your offense around these guys to help everyone succeed, and you can't get the ball moving. I get that it's the first game and you haven't played in a while, but you got to show me more than that, man. And we saw the creativity in the first quarter, and then ever since that 4th down stuff at 1st and short at the goal line, it just went downhill from there. And the Cardinals they were relentless. They were relentless the entire game. And this was one of those games where I thought the better team did lose, and that was the Niners.
Yeah.
But you got to figure that Shanahan's play calling overall was very, very inconsistent throughout the day.
Absolutely. I mean, that 3rd and 2 where they did like the wheel route to McKinnon. I'm like, why are you throwing a wheel on 3rd and 2? Like, what are you doing?
Right.
That's not like for all the things that, we criticize Jimmy Garoppolo for. I mean, that's one of the things that's, those touch throws down the field to the sideline. That's one of the things that he's not particularly good at. And so to call that, I mean, why not line up in 21 personnel and run a play action play when you have Mostert had just been ripping off a couple of good runs, and he's a threat in the pass game. Juszczyk had a run or whatever, and you just fake it to those guys and then maybe run Kittle on a drag across, and it's 2 yards. I mean, there's just a lot of things that were head scratching with play calling and things like that. There was a 3rd and 3 later where they called some weird play. It's just not good overall.
Real quick, while we're talking about everything, what were some things that you saw they actually did like? Because right now we're going over all the shit that pissed us off.
Trent Williams is the real deal, dude. Trent Williams is absolutely the real deal. We saw that play up the middle of the field where he just blasted the linebacker 5 yards back. I couldn't believe it. But overall, it felt like throughout the day, that left side of the line between Trent and Lakin held up very well for the most part. Lakin he's a better run blocker than he is a pass protector, but I think he has taken good steps to work on pass protecting, and we kind of saw that today. The offensive line play was very inconsistent, but it did have its moments where Jimmy did have his time, and Jimmy just either hit a late throw, and there's kind of nothing you can do about that. But overall, I think the biggest takeaway, at least from the offensive side of the ball, was that the Trent Williams trade so far is already paying off.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think honestly, early in the game, and I know it was early, but I really liked how much pressure Nick Bosa was getting. I mean, he was eating dudes up, and it seemed like the offense really started running away from Nick Bosa towards later in the game. But early on, I mean, he didn't get any sacks, but he was right there a couple of times, and so you like to see that hustle. The defensive line overall did a pretty good job. I know late again when Arizona started picking up tempo and the offense couldn't sustain, you could see them getting gassed a little bit. But overall, I thought the D-line did a good job. I thought Richard Sherman did a pretty good job. Again, it's one of those things where I'm like, after the NFC Championship game in the Super Bowl where you saw him get attacked, hey, go after Sherman. But it seemed like Sherman did a pretty good job over on his side. That being said, I think Richard Sherman having a side is an issue. I would have liked to see Sherman travel and play with DeAndre Hopkins and use his veteran instincts to be able to.
Real quick, he did move around today. I saw that we were reporting he did move around.
Okay.
And you got to figure, too, to speak on what Matt's talking about, they held Kyler Murray to 230 passing yards. And I got to admit, for a quote-unquote
on 40 attempts. On 40 attempts, 5.75 yards per attempt. Terrible. That's a terrible.
Awful. The secondary was good.
Right.
Albeit against DeAndre Hopkins, which you have to figure they need to game plan better for. As a whole, the secondary did its job. Sometimes Hopkins will have that game and you have to adjust. And although they didn't adjust, you got to figure that the secondary was able to do what they were supposed to do. What
really killed. So Hopkins, listen, Mosley being on Hopkins, while not, it kind of exposes Mosley for being an undrafted guy. because DeAndre Hopkins is one of the best. I mean, he's what, top 1-2 receivers in football. So you're talking about either. I mean, you're talking about, Mosley, who's an undrafted free agent going against a top guy or whatever. And it kind of exposed Mosley for being still a work in progress, especially on those routes where it's like, okay, DeAndre Hopkins looks like he's going to run a go route and then he runs a comeback. And then all of a sudden Mosley's 5 or 6 yards off of Hopkins and Hopkins is making these catches and converting on 2nd and 8 or 3rd and 10 or like whatever it was. And those were the areas where Mosley really got eaten up and that really hurt the 49ers. So, again, when you're talking about the two guys you got to look out for, Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, and it almost seems like 14 catches, which is a career high for Hopkins. Like, did you forget about him? I mean,
there was that one play
it wasn't good.
It was 3rd and whatever, and Hopkins was wide open. And I even tweeted out, did the 49ers even know that Hopkins plays for the Cardinals? Because they weren't even looking at him. He went into the end zone virtually untouched, and it's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
We have a question here, though. I want to get your guys' opinion on. What are your guys' thoughts on the interior O-line? There was a lot of talk about it.
Garbage. It was garbage. It was bad. Yeah. They couldn't run in between the tackles at all, so they were forced to run a lot of stretch plays. And, one of the things that isn't really talked about in Kyle Shanahan's zone run scheme is the counter plays where the guard pulls. And if you don't trust your interior O-line to make those plays, then you're not running those plays. And I didn't see any counters run today. Everything was, either a one cut and go or a stretch play. And that really limited the offense because the Arizona defense has speed. And what you really want to do is you want to set the edge and set holes for, gaps for the running backs to go through. They couldn't do any of that. It wasn't good. And if you can't run the ball and the threat of the run is not there, then and you're limited on wide receiver, that obviously limits your passing game too. So it's a lot of different things that go and contribute to this. And it just turned into a kind of a clusterfuck overall.
One thing I want to touch on was their biggest area of weakness was on 3rd and 4th down. They were, I think, 2 and 13 on 3rd and 4th down. And that's it's unacceptable for a team this good with as many pieces, whatever you want to discount their injuries and Debo not being in there, that's fine. But there were still enough guys where they should have been converting at least 50% on 3rd down. And they didn't even get their first 3rd down until midway through the 4th quarter or something.
Yeah, they started the half
like that. It was atrocious.
Yeah.
It was so bad. And it's just like, come on, man. You guys got to be doing a little better than this.
Right.
And even with Kyle, I was expecting a little bit of a stronger play call, getting some more high percentage throws or, runs in there. And it just wasn't that. It was kind of like a free-for-all. It was almost like he just came out there and said, look, we're almost not going to win this game, so let's just do what we can to make it close. And
there were some weird parts about that, too, where it seemed like he was kind of, okay, let's see what's going on here. There were a couple of substitutions that looked really weird. Where it's just like, oh, okay, all of a sudden, Kerry Hyder's getting heavy snaps, or like, oh, let's see what Solomon Thomas is going to do on this and that. And listen, to Solomon Thomas's credit, he had a couple of really nice plays.
He played well.
The other area that the 49ers really struggled in again, and we've been talking about this, I feel like for 10 years now, is red zone offense.
Awful.
The red zone offense. I mean, you're talking about, you run Raheem Mostert right into the middle of the defense on a 4th and goal when Jet McKinnon just had a 16-yard run to get them right there. And you're telling me everybody talked about, oh, well, they have Kittle and they have Jordan Reed and they have Ross Dwelly and they got all these guys. And you're telling me that you're not going to run some play action or use Kyle Juszczyk or anything. You're just going to run straight into the middle where everybody thinks you're going to go, and you're not going to mix it up. I mean, it
felt very vanilla. It felt very
laughable. And then, of course, that leads to that 3rd down penalty, which leads to, the Cardinals kind of flipping that and turning it into, an extended drive, which, again, I don't think they got points on that drive. I think Gonzalez missed the field goal, but you're tiring out your defense by extending drives like that. And you need to get the fuck off the field. And, the offense isn't sustaining drives. So that defense needs as much time as it can get. And let's not forget, this is smoky conditions. The air quality was terrible in Santa Clara. So if you're not getting them off the field, I mean, you're looking at guys who are going to get blown up more than usual because the air quality sucks. D Ford, where the fuck was he? He was nowhere. like every time I saw him, it seemed like he was lined up kind of in the neutral zone, and I'm like, can you back up? Like, back up. That's all. The only reason I notice you is because you look like you're offsides, dude. Like, back up. You know, he didn't look good. I think that we really need to, if things don't change, we really need to explore what D Ford is going to be.
I think that's the reality of it too. Because I even saw a play where Robert Saleh dropped D Ford into coverage, and I was like, if he's going to be a better defending linebacker than he is pass rusher, do what you need to do. But overall, it felt like D Ford was non-existent today. But I think we can move on to positives a little bit. Like you said earlier, how about Nick Bosa, man? How about Nick Bosa? This guy is just out here making plays, pressuring Kyler Murray all damn day, getting held like he normally does. And yeah, the box score won't show he had any sacks. But when you actually watch the game and look at the film, this guy's getting doubled and picked by running backs, and he's still getting after Kyler Murray all damn day.
Yep. Yeah, he looked good. Another positive I would say is, you know, minus DeAndre Hopkins. They like really, if you take DeAndre Hopkins out of it, I mean, Kyler Murray basically threw it at nobody. I noticed that Kyler Murray was just sliding a lot. Like, okay, I don't want to get hit. So I'm down.
Careful.
And even if you're not getting, if you're not getting sacks, even him just sliding down, it's like, all right, that's a win. We'll take that.
But,
so they did a decent job.
Is he kept diving into 49ers defenders, and then the second a little bit of a, any sort of contact, get up and go cry to the refs. And more often than not, the refs are like, you're right, I'll throw a flag 15 yards. And it's like, dude, if he's diving into them, what can they do to escape pressure?
The first one I get. The first one I get. The first one was kind of a penalty because he was giving himself up, and then the defender, like Greenlaw, Greenlaw should have just jumped right over him. Like there was no need. You see him go feet first. You don't need to touch him down. He's down. He gives himself up automatically as soon as he goes feet first. That's it. He's down. The second one, even Dean Blandino came on and was like, I don't really like that call. Yeah. And at that point, it's just kind of like,
what do you expect?
What are you doing? What are you doing? So, the first one I kind of get. The second one was complete horseshit, and I wasn't happy about that. Just like I wasn't happy again that pass interference on Mosley that was really a hold. That completely, I mean, 5 yards, okay, whatever. But like you're gonna give them like 30 yards on that penalty, and it's just a backbreaker.
So just think of that swing right there. It would have gone from either a safety or punting from the end zone, and instead they got, like you said, like 30 yards. It's like that's a huge swing and a huge momentum swing because the 49ers could have gotten a stop. They could have actually got some points out of that. And instead, it's like, nope, Cardinals are continuing their drive. They're going to keep driving. You're going to stay on the field. You're going to be gassed. They got, looking at the penalties here, the Cardinals actually had more penalties. They had 9 penalties for 102 yards, and the Niners had 553. But it's the impact of these penalties that really killed the 49ers because
it's what the penalties are.
Yes. And the timing of them as well.
Exactly.
Yes. They bailed out the Cardinals way too many times. So that pissed me off.
So on a plus side, listen, people are going to shit on Jimmy and this and this, that. I think Jimmy did a pretty decent job with what he was working with. And I know he had a couple throws that weren't that great, but he was still, he's still pretty accurate on the day. He was 19 or 33 for 259 and 2 touchdowns. No picks. He got bailed out again. He threw some Jimmy balls that we all know, whatever. But people are like really hammering him on that George Kittle throw. And it's like, well, Kendrick Bourne, first of all, whiffed that block. Second of all, George Kittle caught the ball and was back on the ground when Budda Baker hit him. So, like, really, to me, that high throw is not a factor. It's one thing if you leave him and he's up in the air and Budda Baker just blasts him out of the air. But Kittle was there. His knee was flexed at like a 45-degree angle, and Budda Baker just hit him low, and his momentum carried in. If he would have been on the ground and Budda Baker hit him, it would have been the same thing. Overall, I thought Jimmy did a pretty decent job. He's still going to throw those fucking Jimmy throws that you hate. The one or two that you're just like, why are you throwing that? But, there were, again, when it came down to it, other than that last throw to Taylor was just late.
Yeah.
But other than that, and he missed, again, there was a throw he missed to Bourne. There was a throw to Mostert that he missed in the end zone. There were a couple of misses. But again, watch any quarterback play. There are missed throws and left opportunities on the field every week from every single quarterback, whether you're Patrick Mahomes or you're, Ryan Fitzpatrick. It doesn't matter. You're going to leave plays on the field. Jimmy overall, I thought, did a good job managing, considering that he was down a couple wide receivers and had no interior offensive line.
And you got to figure too, Matt, I got to push on it too, is, you may be thin at wide receiver, but someone has to step up. Bourne has to step up. Pettis has to step up. I know Taylor's missed time, but he's got to step up. And Richie James has to step up, but he got hurt. So that team was down to 3 wide receivers at a time when we could use more wide receivers. And don't even get me started on why CJ Beathard still has a roster spot, because that could have gone to another wide receiver.
Exactly.
A trash can that could have made a difference. And you got to figure, like you said, Jimmy will leave throws on the field. That happens. Yeah. But when you don't have confidence in your wide receivers, because no one's going out there really trying to contest a ball and showing Jimmy that, hey, look, I'm here for you. I'm here to play with you. No one's doing that for him. And Jimmy has no reason but to throw to his running backs and tight ends.
Yeah, and the perfect example of that was that deep throw to Dante Pettis, where he was trying to throw Pettis open. And Pettis had a chance to dive or run, at least, listen, he has a path to the ball. He can run through the defender if he needs to. And Pettis just kind of he didn't try. It looked like he just was like, oh, well, it's out of my reach. And Jimmy tried to throw him to the sideline because the safety was playing over the top and the corner was too far outside. So there was a window there for Pettis, and Pettis could have made a play on that ball. I'm looking at I'm freeze framing, and I'm like, that ball is right fucking there. If you just,
it was close.
Jump or dive or do something.
Draw some kind of contact from the safety, because that could have been a penalty.
Or draw contact and hope for a flag. Exactly. Right. There's a lot of things that you can do. And it's one of those things where you're just like, this is what our problem is with Dante Pettis. He's not that competitive dude. Where if it was if that was Deebo Samuel, you don't think Deebo Samuel would have dived for that ball? 100%.
He would have done everything he could to catch that ball.
He would have done everything he could have to get that ball. And it's the difference between a guy who's willing to go out there, put his body on the line, and really is a dog for that team versus somebody like Dante Pettis, who's a little pitter-patter guy who will run some beautiful routes for sure, has great feet, sure, but he's not a competitor. And I think
when that happened, my first thought was when I interviewed Kyle Posey, and he said the joke around camp is he doesn't go up against contact. If there's any sort of contact, Dante's not catching that ball. Dante's not trying to catch that ball, and there wasn't even any contact there. That's what just completely amazed me. It's like you could have tried, and then imagine the narrative right now if Dante caught that ball. Right. Dante's back. Yeah. Dante, the redemption arc has begun. And instead, it's like, man, more of the same shit from Dante.
Steve said it in the chat, too. Pettis didn't get a single target after that. I think that goes a long way also between building
trust. Did he have any catches? No. I don't think Dante caught a single pass, which is par for the course for him. It's so strange, too, because on that punt return, he takes a dangerous punt return with a guy right in his fucking face and then takes contact on the punt return, but he's not going to dive for that throw. It's so weird, man.
Very backwards.
I'm so puzzled by Dante Pettis and his mindset. I just can't, and he's like, oh, well, I learned from Shanahan and everybody being hard on me, and I had to look at whatever. I mean, that's all talk. Show us on the field.
You are a football player. You are a football player out there. There's no room for soft players. I'm sorry.
No,
none. Right, quick question. What are your thoughts on Jerick McKinnon?
Awesome.
How was his return?
He looked good.
Awesome. He looked pretty good, right?
Good.
Yeah.
So that tip drill that he should have caught that pass. I know it was they're going to say, oh, it was a little behind him, but it literally was center mass on top of his helmet. He let it go through. That being said, other than that, man, he looked nice. He had a couple of really good runs. He had some receptions that were really nice. I mean, he looks healthy. He looks fast. He looks agile. I think he's going to be a huge part of this offense going forward. So I'm excited to see them work him into it more often. And, once everybody's back, I mean, this team, when they're healthy, has so many weapons. It's going to be really nice. But, he looked good today. I thought he did a really good job. Him and Mostert, I mean, essentially carried the team as far as offensive production goes,
It almost makes you wonder if you feel like a running back is going to lead the team in receptions this year, or crazy to say, but even passing yards. You never know. Obviously, we got to see what we're going to get out of Deebo and Ayuk, and this will change our opinions entirely. But right now, obviously, as a show, the running backs are going to take this offense by storm.
I'll say this.
Both good and bad.
Yeah, I'll say this. Tevin Coleman, to me, is a clear number 3 running back. To me, Tevin Coleman is like, okay, maybe we use him on spots here and there, but to me, it's Mostert and McKinnon are the guys. You know what I mean? Like that's the guys that you're going to look for. So, yeah, Iron Plant 45 says definitely look defensive was too tired. Yeah, when the offense can't sustain drives and you're playing in smoky conditions with an offense like Arizona that's going to go no huddle and it's fast, yeah, you're going to get tired. I mean, and that's 100% because the first 2 quarters, the 49ers defense was locking them up. You know, they had, it was 13-10 at halftime, but 7 of those points came off that block punt, which put them in the red zone. So other than that, they didn't do shit. So
the Cardinals had the ball for 31 and a half minutes this game. The Niners had it for 28 and a half, but the second half just felt like Cardinals football.
I'd like to see the split. I'd like to see the split of Cardinals time of possession in the first half versus the second half, because I'm sure the disparity is gigantic.
No doubt.
It was, the first half they had the ball for the majority, definitely. I think that long drive in the fourth quarter helped the 49ers a lot, because up until that point, it seemed like no matter what I was watching, it was the Cardinals on the field. No matter what time, it was Cardinals. The 49ers couldn't get the ball back, save their lives.
Well, and I think it's really important to not get caught up in the result and look at the process. So, the Cardinals go up, it's 17-13, and the 49ers have an extended drive and take the lead 20-17. The Cardinals come back, and obviously, defense again is gassed at that point. So, okay, we're at 24-20 Cardinals or whatever. The offense goes on another extended drive in crunch time to get, close to the red zone, and it didn't happen. But, it shows a lot of promise that, hey, like even down personnel, when it came to, nut cut time, like the team was able to extend some drives, and you just want to see that extended over the course of the game. You can't be, it's like almost like complacency set in at the end of the first quarter, early second quarter, where they're just like, okay, we got this angle route to Mostert, who took it to the house, 76 yards. Great. We got another field goal. Great. We're playing really well. Cardinals can't do shit against us. So now all of a sudden it's just like, well, okay, we got this in the bag. And then all of a sudden you're not extending drives. And now all of a sudden the Cardinals are making a little bit of plays, and it kind of snowballs from there. They have to keep their foot on the gas the whole time, no matter what. So next week, I'd really like to see them. Honestly, they need to stomp the Jets. I'm talking like 2-3 touchdown win. This needs to be a shellacking. And I'm sure Shanahan is going to get in there and chew their asses.
That's what I was hoping. I was going to say that
they're going to get dunked on the whole week.
Yep.
And that needs to show out for the Jets and then into the Giants, because you got a two-game stand in New York / New Jersey, where you're going to be in Virginia, I believe, for 2 weeks, and you're not going to be on your home turf, and it's not going to be comfortable, and you're going to have the specter of that loss hanging over your head. So, I expect this team to come out hard next week, and we're going to see, everybody's talking about the Super Bowl hangover now. I'm not worried about that now. I want to see what happens in the next couple weeks before I get worried about that. So I expect them to come out and, just boat race the New York teams.
What pissed me off too is that we heard for 7 months now, revenge. We're so hyped. We can't wait to get back. We're going to, beat the snot out of all these teams.
Yep.
And that's the product you put on this field.
And then you
it's a joke. It's a goddamn, did you guys forget that football started today? Because you went out there and didn't do anything. You completely you pissed the bed. I mean, they're sitting out there looking like crap, and the offense couldn't sustain drives. The defense was completely gassed. Special teams couldn't do anything. You let a blocked punt get the Cardinals the complete momentum to start the game, and it's just like, come on, man, just come on. You got to do better than that.
Yeah.
You got to put a better product out there.
They talk about revenge tour, but then we see Kansas City come out and essentially dominate the Texans, and then we see Baltimore come out and just dunk all over the Browns today, and it's just like, you're talking about revenge, like you're going to get back to the Super Bowl, but if you don't take care of business on these division games and the games that are totally winnable, and if you're going to give these away, you're not going to get back to the Super Bowl. You're going to be a wild card team who gets beat by somebody else, and you're going to be gone. And so I think this is really good early in the season to kind of adjust their mentality, adjust their mindset, and be like, hey, look, just because you went to the Super Bowl last year doesn't mean it's a given you're going to get back to even the playoffs. We saw what happened with the Los Angeles Rams. They missed the playoffs last year. So it's very important for the 49ers to get their heads on right. Otherwise, it's going to be a long season. And, this team is too talented to let mental shit get in the way. And so I hope that they can grow from this. And they seem to, if anything's on record from last year, they seem to grow from adversity and they seem to learn from their mistakes. So I expect them to come out and just beat the snot out of the two New York teams and come back home for a primetime game against the Eagles. And then by then, I'm guessing that both Ayuk and Samuel will be back, along with, maybe I think Garland's out there today, right? Ben Garland. Maybe Garland will be back. And again, after 6 weeks, we're talking maybe 5-1, because you're looking at, again, Jets, Giants, both should win those games 100%. Then you're looking at the Eagles, who blew a lead to the Washington team today, who infinitely winnable game. Then you're playing the trash Dolphins. You should beat the trash Dolphins.
And by that time, 6 weeks in, we get Weston Richburg back.
Weston Richburg will be back. And now you're starting to gather some health, and you should see this team at full strength and see what they could do. And now it's like, okay, we're potentially 5-1. We're off to the races. Then we see, hey, we're going to see Seattle twice. We're going to see Arizona later in the year. And let's see what happens if we're in our full, 1, mentally straight, 2, physically straight, and we're going to see where the chips are. And hopefully they can get back there. Because to me, the NFC, I mean, I looked at, because I was keeping an eye on Saints Bucks today. Neither of those teams seem like a Super Bowl team to me.
No,
I mean, Drew Brees and Tom Brady might as well be playing football with walkers, man. They look old, and it's not a good look.
Yeah, let's speak on Seattle a little bit, though, man. Seattle just washed Atlanta today. And again, Atlanta might not be at what they once was, but at some point, these division games, winning and losing them is going to be huge. And those NFC West tiebreakers could come into a factor once again if we have to play Seattle for a winning game.
And Seattle to me is the team that we really need to look out for. I'm not worried about the Packers. The Packers are still too finesse. I'm not
Jordan Love. You're not worried about Jordan Love?
No, not at all. He's not even carrying the clipboard. I doubt he's even dressing for the game at this point.
I'd worry about Trubisky more than Love. How about Trubisky?
Oh boy. Listen, even the sun shines on a dog's ass every now and again. You know what I mean? No, but to me, the NFC is wide open. It's San Francisco's for the taking, but they have to keep their heads screwed on straight. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
real quick, how much was Debo's presence missed today? Like a ton, right? Like it can't even be stated how much they missed him.
A ton, because
49ers likely knew he was not going to be playing until week 4. And what did they do? That's what I keep going back to. What did they do to counter that?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Stood pat.
Nothing. And I told you, I told you on the show too. I said week 4 for Deebo Samuel. Now he's on IR, and he's gonna miss at least 3 games. I'm guessing for the Eagles game he'll be back. But this thing of like, oh, we're gonna have this summit on Tuesday before the game to determine is he gonna play, and Deebo's like, oh yeah, I'm out there, I'm ready to go.
Then he gets IR.
Well, no, you're not ready to go. You're not ready to go.
So that leads into a good point too. Do you think the door is open for the team to add another wide receiver to the room? Because obviously the guys that played today.
No, they won't.
They should, but they won't.
They should, but they won't. They're going to roll with the guys that think, oh, well, Trent Taylor, he'll be better next week. Oh, Dante Pettis, he'll be better next week. KB, he's working all off season. He's working hard, this and this, that. But you miss guys. Yeah, you miss guys like Deebo Samuel, because Deebo Samuel being so good gets other guys open.
Yep.
Just George Kittle. When George Kittle is 100% healthy, he gets other people open because everybody's focusing on those guys. If you can get Kittle and Deebo out there at the same time, you're going to see everybody else is going to benefit from that, because everybody else is going to start getting open again. One of the things that I thought that they should have done more was go more to Juszczyk. I think Juszczyk got two touches today. He got a carry on a fullback dive, and then he had that nice fullback catch. Wheel route. He had a nice catch in man coverage, and
Jimmy missed him on one of those the first time too.
Him the way you should. And I think he's a weapon, especially if Kittle's going to be a little hobbled up and not looking as good as he should, as far as being able to actually separate with the knee. You got to use Juszczyk. I mean, we've seen how versatile he can be. There was another play where he was like wide open or whatever, and the interior blocking was so bad that Jimmy didn't even have time. It was that same that play action route where Juszczyk goes out, rolls out. He
wheel.
leaks across the formation and goes up the sideline. And they didn't have time to get it to him because the interior blocking was so bad that Jimmy couldn't throw. And, he wanted to, but he couldn't get there, So I think Juszczyk needs to be utilized more in the interim. But, man, once they can get – and I'm excited to see Ayuk, too, because I think Ayuk is going to be a player. So if we can get Debo and Ayuk back – I mean, Ayuk I expect to be back, if not next week, then definitely against the Giants in week 3. But – I mean, they have to do something. And yes, Steve says they should be on the phone with Sanu. They should have been on the phone with Sanu.
They should have.
As soon as Sanu became available and they were trying to bring in this trash like JJ Nelson, they should have had Kevin Sanu White in here.
Tavon Austin.
Right. Exactly. All this garbage. They should have brought him in. So there's no excuse for that. And it's one of those things where it's just like, you love that Shanahan is this genius and you love that John Lynch is like confident in Shanahan and stuff, but it's just, sometimes where you're just like, man, you guys might be a little up your own ass and you need to bring in, it's one of those things where you think you're too smart for the room. And it's just like, no, you need bodies, man. You need people who are going to contribute. At least take a look, kick the tires on a guy. You're bringing in Ziggy Ansah again in a position of strength where the defensive line didn't play terrible today. Yeah. When you're bringing in a guy like Ziggy Ansah, why don't you have Mohamed Sanu coming in or anybody like that? You know what I mean? Like, you're too smart for the room. And it's because Shanahan's like, well, I know offense. And it's just like, well, okay, that's fine. But you can bring in a guy to potentially help out the team, So they definitely need help at wide receiver because that group is really thin right now.
Now, quick question for you guys. And we all knew going into this year it was going to take some time for Kinlaw to develop and fill into those big shoes Buckner left. But are you concerned at all from what you saw from him today? Because that defensive line in the interior really didn't do much. He had
a couple good block shed and pass rush moves today where, albeit the Cardinals' interior line is weak also, but you just want to see progress from Kinlaw. And everyone knew that this defensive line was going to miss Buckner, and I think we did miss him today. But overall, it felt like along with Kinlaw, that entire rotation – they made their money today. DJ Jones had a nice pressure. I think he had a sack. Kerry Hyder had a nice sack.
Hyder had a sack,
Yeah, so the interior is doing their job. And like I said, they missed Buckner, but there was good progress from Kinlaw today where he did beat some blocks, and you can't go wrong with that.
And I would also caution, listen, Daniel Jones is not Kyler Murray. Sam Darnold is not Kyler Murray.
Pocket passers.
They're going to get
on pocket passers.
Yep. They struggle against those mobile quarterbacks. It happened last year with Lamar Jackson. It happens every year with Russell Wilson. We've seen this for years with Russell Wilson. It's that thing of like, if the quarterback can make plays with their feet, the 49ers defense is going to struggle because what they want to do is pin their ears back and put pressure and collapse a pocket on somebody. But if they're able to step up in the pocket or are able to get away initially, then obviously that's going to cause problems, So
looking a little further ahead too, Matt, I got a comment.
Yeah.
The Washington Redskins, their defensive line is arguably the best in football today. The Washington football team. The Washington football team.
How dare you?
Sorry, cut me off.
Boo!
They sacked Carson Wentz 8 times today. 8
times.
The Niners, like you just said, they got Danny Jones.
Well, okay, let's relax. Let's relax on calling them. They had 8 sacks, but the Eagles line is injured.
Nonetheless, the team is in a very good position for their defensive line to go out there and make pressure and make plays and things like that. And that's what they're going to do these coming weeks. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So the Eagles have a compromised line. I think Lane John who got injured for them for the year.
Brandon Brooks is out for the year.
Brandon Brooks, that's what it was. He like tore his Achilles or something like that. Their line is getting old. Carson Wentz is not as decisive with the ball as he should be at this point in his career. I think this is about the point where you're just like, well, what is Carson Wentz really going to be other than an oft injured, maybe upper third NFL quarterback, but nobody great. He's, same tier as I put, somebody like Dak Prescott, who's like, yeah, he's a good quarterback, but what's he going to do? By the way, Jimmy is dangerously close to getting into that category too. I give him the benefit of the doubt because he hasn't played as much, but he's on a short leash at this point. This is the year that
I agree. This is the contract year for him, by the way. This is technically a contract year because they could cut their losses and not lose much at all. They could get out barely anything. And I get it. We can make all these excuses about the wide receivers and guys getting hurt, but when you are paying Garoppolo, obviously not good money now, but when you are paying the guy to be the guy, we got to see that from him. And quite frankly, we've seen him have these stretches of games where it's like, this is the guy, But then you go up there today and you do miss on some throws and you do go out there and lay an egg, and all of a sudden you got to question, can he beat the guy consistently?
Right. Yeah, you want to see that growth. And I think this truncated offseason does the entire offense a little bit of a disservice. You know, you want to work out some of those kinks. And, you know, I saw somebody on Twitter was like, the last time I saw him this bad was in that preseason game against the Broncos. And it's like, well, fucking, yeah, you want to see preseason games. Like, that's the time to install stuff and look at stuff. And you've seen that, like, really, a lot of the guys that did really well today were the athletic quarterbacks. You're looking at Lamar Jackson did well today. Josh Allen did well today. Kyler Murray had, you know, success running the ball. And you're looking at these guys, you know, who struggled. The guys who run the intricate offenses, or the guys who are trying to learn a complicated offense. The people like Tom Brady struggled today. You know,
Baker Mayfield.
Phillip Rivers struggled today. Baker Mayfield struggled today. You know, people with the more intricate need, you know, you need rhythm. You need to, you know, do that. But I think those offenses are going to catch up, you know, notwithstanding Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is generational talent, but, you know, a lot of the quarterbacks that you would think, oh, they're precision guys, they're rhythm guys, they run a complicated system or whatever. A lot of those guys struggled today. And it was really the athletic guys and the guys with the overwhelming physical talent that really took over. So who knows what's going to happen in the future, but, you know, I give it time. You know, not every defense is going to be as fast as the Cardinals defense was, and not every team is going to be, you know, as mobile as the Cardinals offense is.
Yes. Because that's the main thing is the 49ers, like you guys said earlier, they struggle against mobile quarterbacks. They did last season. It doesn't look like anything has changed this season. And this comment from Thomas, they came in thinking they had a win already. It was a wake-up call, terrible on both sides of the ball. Refereeing could have been better, but it wouldn't have changed anything. I think that's true. I think they did come in today thinking they had this game in the bag. I think they thought, look, we beat this team twice last year, not remembering that both games were down to the wire and they could have easily have lost both games. And they come in injured, they come out flat, they don't come out with any sort of intensity. They never had a spark to get going. They didn't take advantage of any of the momentum shifts that the game presented them. And that's what you get. You get a piss poor product, and you start off the season 1-0. Seattle won. The Cardinals just won. If the Rams win right now, then they're in sole possession of the last place in the division. And you know, they already start off the season in a hole, which is like the worst way to start the year, given that you're in arguably the toughest division in the NFL. Right. Do you guys think that they had this game in the bag? They woke up thinking that?
I don't know if they had the game in the bag necessarily. I think they felt like they were gonna. It's hard to say. I think that they're still coming off of like, hey, we're a Super Bowl team. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
right.
When you open
the game like they did too today, I mean, you're going to be on your high ass horse thinking, we got this in the bag. We just drove on the Cardinals like it was nothing, and then obviously they blocked the punt, but they still make some great defensive plays, and then that intensity just dives down entirely. And you just kind of saw that the confidence of the team just went down.
That's a good thing. That's a good point too, Anthony, because, you know, they come out and although they were only able to get a field goal on their opening drive, they follow it up with that touchdown to Mostert, who takes it all the way in for the score. And they're probably thinking, damn, we're pretty good. We could have been 14-0 right now, but we'll take 10-0 and go from here. But you can't get complacent. You know, no team in the NFL can you just fall asleep on. And especially a team that played you as tough as the Cardinals did last year. It's not a good look. And to come out that flat, you know, like I said earlier in the show, when for 7 months now, we've been hearing about how motivated they are, how they're ready to get back. And, yeah. So it's just like, then show it. If you guys are this motivated, if you learned from those mistakes, if you're ready to get back to the Super Bowl and each of these games, if weeks 1 through 17 are just another, you know, stepping stone to get to where you actually want to go, which is the Super Bowl, then you got to show it. You can't fall asleep for those weeks because you're not going to end up anywhere. You're going to miss the playoffs and you're going to be the laughing stock of the NFL and another team who had a Super Bowl hangover who didn't do shit the next year. So they really need to step it up.
Yeah, and you know, today was a perfect example of why I really pined for the 49ers to re-sign Emmanuel Sanders, because he would have made such a huge difference today, if not with an overwhelming number of catches or yards, just with a veteran presence and the ability to draw the attention of a defense. And, you know, we gave him a 3 and a 4 for him last year, and we got nothing in return. He just left. And I know that we had other areas of need that we needed to re-sign and, XYZ, but having that veteran presence would have helped out today. And I think that's why we're missing Debo so much and Ayuk so much. And, again, this is a game of yards and inches and whatever. And it's just like, when you're worried about that kind of stuff.
It's the in-game adjustments that really got to me too. Is that we didn't see those adjustments, and we saw, especially in the fourth quarter too, we saw a good amount of busted coverages by the defense, where it's like, here you go, and Quan Alexander is busting plays and can't stop Kyler Murray, who on Kyler Murray's last scramble, albeit I thought Quan was held, he was the spy on that play. You got to go after Kyler and contain him to the best of your ability. And overall, it looked like Quan was one of the rustiest defensive players on the day outside of D4. This guy was missing tackles, he was blowing plays, and it was those kind of adjustments that you need to see that the team just simply didn't do, especially on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I think so. For me, Quan, a lot of his stuff, I mean, he played so much injured last year that, and he had obviously he had the surgeries or whatever after the Super Bowl, that he's one of the guys that I really think not having a preseason does a disservice to, because your timing and your recognition and you're just being out there instead of, I feel like Quan was definitely, he's an athletic guy. And I think a lot of his focus was on, getting his athleticism back, being able to recognize and be able to have his strength back. And, so recognition, play recognition, being able to, again, that 3rd and 17 where he didn't know where the line of scrimmage was. That's all like small mental errors that you get as you rep, as you do all this stuff. But we're talking about no OTAs. We're talking about limited preseason. Quan looked really bad today. And that's not to say that he's a bad player, because we all know that he's not. I mean, it's really easy to forget that until he got hurt against the Cardinals last year, he didn't miss a single tackle for those games.
Oh,
he didn't miss a single thing. He was excellent. So, I mean, even on the touchdown pass that Murray had to Edwards, I think it was, listen, Quan Alexander hauled his ass across the field to try to break that up, and he looked very athletic. And so when you're out of practice and you're rusty and you're coming back from an injury and you don't have those mental reps down, it's going to take time. So while he played very bad, and I'm not going to excuse his bad play, I think that in the coming weeks, he should improve on that. So I'd expect him to look a lot better going forward.
Yeah, same here, because there was a time where he did look like the worst linebacker for the 49ers out there. Dre Greenlaw looked better than him. Fred Warner looked better than him. And there were so many times where it's like, Quan, what are you doing? What are you looking at? What line are you going off of in your head? Where do you think they are? Because he would stare at Kyler running past the line of scrimmage while he's still backdropping into coverage. And it's like, dude, go hit him. You just got a first down on a 3rd and 17. When they converted that, I'm like, there's no chance. There's no chance this defense will stop Kyler to save their life, because no matter what they did, Kyler was running around there, scurrying, sliding, drawing penalties, and they just didn't have an answer for him. I was hoping there would be some, those famous halftime adjustments, and the 49ers would be able to come out and play differently against Kyler and his damn scrambles, but they didn't do anything. They just let him keep cooking. They let him keep, running. And no matter what they did, he just kept getting first downs, kept getting touchdowns. Yeah. So they didn't really.
And I saw a lot of bad angles out there too, which is one of those things where the more you rep, the better angles you're going to take, because again, it takes time to get used to. Okay, you can run out there and you can run routes and you can do X, Y. You can. Okay, well, I'm defending routes on a practice field with nobody around, but when you have a bunch of guys going around and you have to drop one guy to go get another and you have to take that angle, that's not something you typically can scrimmage for or whatever. So that takes time to really get used to. So, again, that's something, going forward, they have the opportunity against really poor teams coming up to rectify some of that stuff and really build momentum against an awful Giants team and an awful Jets team. Going forward, that they should be able to really, kind of tighten up against, because this was the first time, one time last year, they gave up more than 400 yards for an opposing team's offense, and it was in that 48-46 win against the Saints. And the Cardinals had over 400 yards of offense today. So, you have to assume they're going to tighten that up. You would hope that they would tighten that up. If not, then we have a lot of questions going forward, and we have a lot of people that we're going to look at and say, "Hey, what's your future here?" Quan really needs to clean it up, or Quan's going to be gone. D Ford, if D Ford can't stay on the field and stay healthy, then paying him $88 million for the next, whatever, doesn't make any sense. The corners, for all things considered, I thought they did a pretty good job today, despite being super thin. I don't remember hearing Akella Witherspoon's name at all. I don't know if he even played.
Mosley's out there over him.
Right. Yeah. So I guess that's good that I don't know. I think Witherspoon's gone. I think Sherman's going to be gone. I think Mosley will retain. K'Wan Williams will try to retain. Verrett is such a coin flip. There's so many things going on that, really, you just, all things considered, I thought they did a decent job. Minus forgetting fucking DeAndre Hopkins, 14 catches. Son of a bitch.
We have a super chat here, and hilarious name, by the way. But what do you guys want to see the 49ers improve on next week?
Hung fat, that's me every day. Yeah, go ahead, Zach. What do you want to see them improve on?
I want to see them improve on their third down conversions, because if you can't move the ball on third down, you can't do shit in the NFL. So if you keep improving on these third downs, and I'd like to at least see them at 50%, then I would be a lot happier, even if they lost, because it's like, man, if you keep, having to punt on third down, you're not moving the ball. You're not sustaining drives. You're not giving your defense a rest. You're not wearing out the opposing defense. There's so many factors that goes into not converting on third downs. So I would really, really like to see them improve there. Matt, what do you got?
I'd like to see them improve their mental focus, because I think a lot of the mistakes that they made today were a mental nature. It wasn't necessarily Arizona imposing their will on the 49ers as much as the 49ers just being like, la, 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 and, fucking up. So you have to clean up that mental aspect of the game, and you really have to figure out, hey, if you're running a 3-step drop and you're going to throw the ball. Don't do that like super 720 twist around that Jimmy did. And, figure it out. And that goes for Kyle Shanahan too. Figure out your play calls, be decisive, make good decisions when you're in the game, and take down distance and situation into account when you're calling plays. Everybody needs to step up their mental focus for the game. And if they can do that, then they'll be fine.
Anthony, what do you got?
I think what they got to improve on, and I'm going to look at the bigger picture of this. I want Kyle Shanahan's red zone play calling to be the difference. Time and time again, like Matt said, the red zone play calling since Shanahan has come in here has been atrocious. And they have times like today where we saw a great pick play from Kittle and Juszczyk where McKinnon caught it out in the flat and scored. I want to see more of that kind of stuff. Kyle Shanahan, you are one of the most innovative and creative offensive mindsets in the entire football league. And yet we have one of the worst red zone offenses in football. I don't care who your playmakers are, man. You got to find a way to get these guys open somehow. And I get it. Kyle Shanahan thrives in the middle of the field. That's where he makes his money, the middle of the field, from 20 to 20. But once you get from 20 to end zone, that's when the game changes entirely. And you got to have a game plan for the red zone. And time again, it feels like Kyle Shanahan's red zone play calling is way too passive. It is absolutely too passive.
He gets too cute too. He gets too cute sometimes.
Yes.
Where he outthinks himself, and we saw this in the Super Bowl, where he just outcoaches himself.
Yes.
Where he's just like again, 3rd and 2. Why the fuck are you running a wheel route? Like, why?
There's no reason. Why are you stuffing Mostert up the middle?
Right. Yep. Fourth and goal. You're just going to run a halfback dive right into the teeth of the defense. Again, it's that thing where he thinks he knows better than everybody else. And at some point, you just got to, he needs somebody that can, maybe that's something to look into, but he needs somebody that's going to be like, hey, coach, maybe this.
Yeah. Hey,
and have enough stroke to convince him to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's like, Anthony and I have talked about this on the Red and Gold Standard podcast, where I've said it even going back to last year. He out coaches himself, just like Matt said. It's like he's out thinking somebody so much that he then has to outthink that mindset. It's like, no, just get the damn play call in. Chances are you're probably right. What you think initially, you're probably corrected. You have a fantastic football mind. You know this offense inside and out. It's your offense. call the damn play and run with it and stick with it instead of, changing it again. And then, oh no, actually that might work, but I'm going to go with this, which has, might work also. It's like, no, just fucking do it, man. Just fucking do it because you're getting cute and it's not working. You're getting cute and it's not cute. That's right. All I got to say.
Yeah. And so there's Steve's asking in the chat, do they miss Buckner? And that's a question that I have. Do you think that the 49ers missed DeForest Buckner? Me personally, I don't. I thought the defensive line played pretty well, all things considered. Again, even last year, the 49ers defensive line struggled against mobile quarterbacks. With Buckner here or not, I think that Kinlaw is going to be a work in progress, and I think he'll get better as the season progresses. But I think that really a lot of the defensive woes were offensive woes in disguise because the defense got tired. What do you guys think?
I think the team misses Buckner. Like I said earlier, I like that the other guys are getting their playing time in because Solomon Thomas looked pretty good today. Kinlaw had some nice plays, Givens and DJ Jones, obviously. So the interior wasn't bad. But the key cog to that success last season was having Buckner out there. And I'm not going to lie, guys, I didn't see much of Armstead today. And some people are going to call into the factor of, well, should that extension have gone to Buckner instead of Armstead? And we can play that game all we want, but the point being is that Buckner was he was kind of the anchor, the interior. And like Matt said, Kinlaw will progress and he will get better because he flashed very well today. But right now, as of right now,
fucking word flashed. I hate that goddamn word.
For a win now team that has Super Bowl aspirations, this team misses Buckner.
Yeah, and I agree. I do think that they missed Buckner. But I think they missed him right now. Give it a couple of weeks. I don't think they will miss him very soon. I just think that as of right now, they went into this season probably expecting that sort of production. Maybe not expecting, but hoping for that sort of production week one when that's just not how it works. So I don't know. I feel like there was a lot of rotations today on that defensive line, which the 49ers usually don't do. It's usually pretty solid. And, besides kind of wear and tear rotations, but there was just rotations like they were scheduled today. So I don't know. I think they were, and I think they were trying to play that interior line almost like by committee. It was okay, now Hyder's in, now Givens is in, now Kinlaw's in. And it's I think they miss Buckner, but like I said, I don't think they will. Give it a couple weeks. So
I think they missed offensive personnel more. I think they missed offensive health more. Again, I think if the offense can sustain drives like they're supposed to, like we would expect them to, then the defense wouldn't be missing Buckner as much. And I think it's really easy to be like, DeForest Buckner was an all-pro and whatever. Listen, they're still going to get after it. Again, wait until you see them against, somebody like Daniel Jones or somebody like Sam Darnold, somebody that they can get after and pin their ears back. And then tell me if they missed DeForest Buckner, because let's be honest, Kyler Murray ate us for lunch last year too. So why we expect anything different just because we're missing Buckner or whatever? I don't understand that. Let's see what they do. The pressure was there, especially early. Early. I mean, how many times did Murray slide within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage because he's not going to take hits? Yeah. A ton of times where it's just you look at, if you broke down Kyler Murray's sacks versus carries or whatever, you're going to see a lot of 1 yard run, 2 yard run, -1 yard run. There were a couple times where he slid behind the line of scrimmage because he was pressured. And so to me, that tells me that the defensive line is doing its job. They're getting back there. They're pressuring him. But Kyler Murray is such an athlete that he can escape that four-man pressure. So unless we saw a couple times where they ran Jimmy Ward or they ran K'Wan Williams on pressure. And those were the times where you get a deflection or you get Kyler Murray throwing the ball out of bounds. Yeah. But Solid doesn't run a lot of pressure too much. So a lot of it is four-man fronts. When you have four-man fronts and you have 5 offensive linemen, you're going to run into situations where Kyler Murray can escape and get a couple yards here, get a couple yards there. And then you're dependent on your back 7 to kind of, eat up some of that real estate and keep him in check. And that's where people like Quan Alexander missing that 3rd and 17 come into play. So not every week is going to be a Lamar Jackson or a Kyler Murray or a Russell Wilson. You kind of have to batten down the hatches for those weeks. But for most weeks, this defensive line is going to get home and get sacks. So starting next week against the Jets and Sam Darnold, who sees ghosts everywhere, I expect this defensive line to eat lunch all day long. 1 p.m. Eastern time. It's time for the 49ers to eat. So
Kyler Murray ran for 91 yards today. The running backs for the Cardinals, 86 total yards. So they did their job against the run. But when you give them a quarterback who can improvise and make plays with his feet, that was the problem last season. So overall, like Matt said, once they give us pocket passers, it is what it is, because the defensive line and the linebackers did their job against actual run plays, not scrambles. Right. Scrambles is what we struggled with. So the talent is there. The defensive line adjustments are there for the run game. It's just sometimes breakdowns happen, and Kyler Murray had a couple of big runs. Outside of that, though, that was it. There was a lot of 1 and 2 yard runs.
Yep.
What's frustrating the most about, real quick, Matt, about the scrambles is that they usually come in when the secondary and the defensive line both won their matchups. Either they're scrambling because the coverage is so good, or the defensive line is creating pressure and you got to scramble outside the pocket. So it's like, dude, you were so close on both sides, and then you just let Kyler run off a 10-yard, for a first down gain. It's like, oh, it's just so frustrating, man.
Right. And there's a reason. There's a reason that guys like Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray and Josh Allen are going to be so effective, because they're typically going to be faster than even really athletic defensive linemen. And by the time they get past the defensive line, then the linebackers have to come up and leave their player. And so it's like, well, do you give up the pass or do you play the run? And it's such an extra dynamic that, it's hard to deal with. David Yang says, how come we're the only team that struggles against a running QB? We're not. No. Lamar Jackson was the MVP last year, and he wasn't the MVP because he's a pocket passer. That's for damn sure. Lamar Jackson was the MVP because he makes plays with his legs to set up his throws. He led the league in touchdown passes, but it wasn't like they were long touchdown passes. They were in the red zone, and he was throwing passes to his tight end because everybody was worried about the RPO. Same thing. Josh Allen was really effective today against the Jets, not because he was throwing the ball especially well, but because he can take off and he can run. So when you have that dual threat, you're talking about an added dimension that you have to worry about. Instead of being 11 on 10 like it used to be against pocket passers, now you're talking 11 on 11 with sometimes the most athletic person on your team being the quarterback. So in the case of the Arizona Cardinals, I would argue that outside of DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray is the most athletic player on that team. So you're talking about trying to contain that guy with defensive linemen and defensive linemen who are engaged with big dudes who are trying to shoot gaps or stunt inside or speed rush outside, this and that. So you're worried about engaging with an offensive lineman and then worrying about if the guy takes off on you. So I don't think that it's, we're the only team that struggles with. There's a reason why the NFL is shifting towards this type of player, why a player like Patrick Mahomes is so effective who can run the ball, or Kyler Murray is so effective who can run the ball, but also can throw the ball. It's because you add that extra dimension and it's so hard to defend. It's not just us, it's everybody.
Plays break down too. It happens. Sometimes scrambling quarterbacks like Lamar and Mahomes and Kyler just get lucky where the secondary has their backs turned because their coverage is really good. Defensive line is forcing Kyler out of the pocket. And there's nothing you can do. Mobile quarterbacks against us can get lucky. And again, plays break down. And sometimes they can just scramble. Like Zach said, the coverage can be so good that there's just this open hole in the middle of the field where quarterbacks can just run wild. And that's kind of something that's just out of the team's control.
Yeah. You remember the old term, right? Coverage sack.
Oh,
where you have a pocket quarterback back there and he couldn't find anybody open. So then he gets sacked.
You know how many times we heard that last season? That's all we heard last season.
Yeah, coverage sack doesn't exist with guys like Murray and Jackson, because if they don't see it, they're going to take off.
Yep.
And then everybody's occupied. And it's like, well, shit, now we got this guy. So, yeah, they need to have it almost – you have to set up a dedicated spy, and it has to be somebody that can match athleticism, which is going to be really hard.
Quan can if he just reads better.
Yeah, well, Quan is definitely athletic enough, so yeah.
It's all mental.
So before we go, guys, let's talk about what we hope to see next week against the Jets.
In-game adjustments, baby. That's what I want.
10 a.m. start time. So what do we expect? What are our predictions? Like, what do we got going on for next week?
I'll go first. For me, I already touched on the third down conversions, but I also want them to pass the ball more, and I want to see Jimmy trust his receivers. You're not going to have Debo next week. Who knows how much Ayuk's going to be able to play? You're going to need to trust KB. You're going to need to trust Trent Taylor. You're going to need to trust Dante Pettis. And I know a lot of people might laugh at that, but it's like, look, if you can't trust them, then you are taking away literally half of your offense, and that's not sustainable. You can't win games without using your wide receivers. You really need to just be able to trust them. And we did see Jimmy throw it up there, and it ended up getting intercepted, and luckily got called back, but he trusted KB. I think it was KB, and he threw a ball up there, and it got picked. Luckily, it was brought back due to a whole.
That was Jerick McKinnon, actually. That was McKinnon.
That was Jerick.
Oh, was it? Okay. So he trusts McKinnon. So then, but I mean, negates my point. But still, I want to see him trust his wide receivers, and I want to see them convert on third down. And I also, last thing, I want to see them come out hot and keep it. We've seen them now in 2 back-to-back games, going back to the Super Bowl, below 10-point leads. You can't do that in the NFL. Hold your damn leads.
Yeah. Go ahead, Anthony.
Well, I want to see against the Jets next week, so I'll drop the first prediction. My one bold one came true. The Niners were only going to get 2 sacks, and that happened. I thought that was pretty bold, but after seeing today, it was kind of expected. So against the Jets, I want to see double that, man. I want to see 4 sacks. I want to see these guys get to Sam Darnold. And like I said earlier, my biggest thing is I want to see in-game adjustments. I want to see red zone adjustments. I want to see Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh both really use that creativity, because we have all the talent on both sides of the ball. I don't care if Kendrick Bourne is the problem or Dante Pettis is the problem. You still have that talent where these guys can make plays. Use that. Kyle Shanahan, go out there and trust your wide receivers. If you don't trust them, you shouldn't even have a wide receiver on the roster to begin with. Go out there, let your guys make plays, trust Garoppolo to make plays downfield, and get the job done.
All right. I got them playing some smash mouth football and establishing the run. 15 for 56 for Mostert today. Not good enough. They need to establish the run. I think Trent Taylor, everybody's going to bash Trent Taylor. I think Trent Taylor will be fine. He hasn't really played in almost a season and a half. I think that Jimmy, I agree with Zach. Jimmy needs to trust the receivers more. Whether or not that they're 5 yards wide open, he can't just, throw only to wide open receivers. He's going to have to put the ball where it needs to go. So between the run and Jimmy throwing where he needs to go, we got a guy in the chat. We need a number 1 wide receiver. Number 1 wide receiver's on the bench right now, hurt. He'll be back.
Yeah, we have one.
For now, these are imminently winnable games. And for me, I predict the score for the 49ers Jets to be 37-10 49ers. We're going to boat race them. We're going to beat the shit out of them. The Jets are terrible. They're terrible. And we're going to all day. 10
points is very generous for the Jets, man. That offense was brutal today. And the Bills have a pretty good defense themselves. I think you know what? I think the Niners are going to get 4 turnovers. I predicted it. It failed. But these guys have shown they can turn the ball or force turnovers. I think that's going to happen. Darnold's going to continue to see ghosts. I got these guys forcing 4 turnovers and dropping a 38 bomb too, Matt. I'm thinking 38-7.
Wow. All right. Both of you guys up in the high 30s. I got something similar when I was thinking of this game after how this one ended. I got 35-10.
Okay. Pretty
similar.
Yeah, I agree with Anthony on the turnovers, by the way. The 49ers forced a couple of fumbles today, but they just weren't in position to recover them.
The hunger is there for turnovers. The hunger is there. They will go out there and do them. Sometimes fumbles happen, and they get lucky to recover them.
Yep.
All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for us today. We really appreciate you all tuning in to our first week 1 recap.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Recap. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thanks for the super chat. And we're going to be doing this after every game, so make sure you catch us here. We'll be on YouTube and on Periscope on Twitter. Make sure you tune in, send in your questions and your comments, and we'll be more than happy to answer all of them. And make sure you guys are subscribing to the channel and following us on Twitter. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Click the bell for all the notifications. We're bringing you Niners news this week, so make sure you tune in for all the videos. Till next time, go Niners.